ॐ विश्वन्दर्पण दृश्यमान नगरी तुल्यन्निजान्तर्गतम् पश्यन्नात्मनि मायया बहिर्वोद्भूतं यथा निद्रया यः साक्षात् कुरुते प्रबोधसमये स्वात्मानमेवाद्वयम् तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नम इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नारायणं पद्मभुवं वसिष्ठं शक्तिं च तत्पुत्रपराशरं च व्यासं शुकं गौडपदं महान्तं गोविन्दयोगीन्द्रमथास्य शिष्यं श्रीशङ्कराचार्यमथास्य पद्मपादं च हस्तामलकं च शिष्यं तन्तोटकं वातिककारमन्यान् अस्मद्गुरून् सन्ततमानतोऽस्मि श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः परब्रह्मनिष्ठं स्वतो धर्मनिष्ठं अहिंसैकनिष्ठं स्वशिष्यैः सुजुष्टं यतीनां वरिष्ठं गुरूणां गरिष्ठं दयानन्दरूपं मदाचार्यमीडे नमः श्री परमार्थाय संसाराध्यासनाशिने श्रोत्रिय ब्रह्मनिष्ठाय तस्मै ब्रह्मविदे नमः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम् ॐ तपोभिः क्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागिणां मुमुक्षूणामपेक्ष्योऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते. I welcome you all to the 18th class of the Atma Bodha series. We will read verses 35 to 39 that we covered in the last class and then proceed from there. Ahamakashavat sarvam
अहमाकाशवत् सर्वम्
बहिरन्तर्गतोऽच्युतः
बहिरन्तर्गतोऽच्युतः
सदा सर्वसमसिद्धः
सदा सर्वसमसिद्धः
निस्सङ्गो निर्मलोऽचलः
निस्सङ्गो निर्मलोऽचलः
नित्यशुद्धविमुक्तैकम्
नित्यशुद्धविमुक्त्यैकम्
अखण्डानन्दमद्वयम्
अखण्डानन्दमद्वयम्
सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं यत्
सत्यं ज्ञानमनन्तं यत्
परं ब्रह्माहमेव तत्
परं ब्रह्माहमेव तत्
एवं निरन्तराभ्यस्ता
एवं निरन्तराभ्यस्तात्
ब्रह्मैवास्मीति वासना
ब्रह्मैवास्मीति वासना
हरत्यविद्याविक्षेपान्
हरत्यविद्याविक्षेपान्
रोगानिवरसायनम्
रोगानिवरसायनम्
विविक्तदेश आसीनः
विविक्तदेश आसीनः
विरागो विजितेन्द्रियः
विरागो विजितेन्द्रियः
भावयेदेकमात्मानम्
भावयेत् एकमात्मानम्
तम् अनन्तमनन्यधीः
तम् अनन्तमनन्यधीः
आत्मन्येवाखिलं दृश्यम्
आत्मन्येवाखिलं दृश्यम्
प्रविलाप्य धिया सुधीः
प्रविलाप्य धिया सुधीः
भावयेदेकमात्मानं
भावयेत् एकमात्मानं
निर्मलाकाशवत् सदा
निर्मलाकाशवत् सदा।
ब्रह्म सत्यं जगन्मिथ्या जीवो ब्रह्मैव नापरः. This is the essence of the teaching of Vedanta. And when the student understands this, the student understands it as Aham Satyam Jagan Mithya Aham Brahmaiva Naparaha. Or in other words, Aham Brahmasmi. I am that Satyam Brahma. And the entire Jagat that I see is Mithya. It is in a lower order of reality. The entire Jagat is dependent upon me for its existence. And how does one come to this understanding? Through the Mahavakya-vicāra. The Mahavakya talks about the Jīvatma Paramatma Aikyam, the oneness of Jiva and Ishvara. But the Jiva and Ishvara are poles apart. How is there oneness? We say that there is oneness in spite of the superficial differences. Because there is one all-pervading, imperishable consciousness. That is the essence of Jiva. And that same all-pervading, imperishable consciousness is the essence of Ishvara also. There is one all-pervading, imperishable consciousness, which is Brahman, which is the essence of the Jiva as well as Ishvara. But the identity is in terms of the consciousness only. The differences are there still in terms of the upadhis. If one asks such a question, we say that the differences are superficial because the differences are either due to Maya or products of Maya. The differences are purely due to the upadhis that are either Maya or products of Maya. And therefore, the differences are due to Mithyā Upādhis. And therefore, the differences are Mithya. And hence we say the differences are superficial. On the other hand, the identity is Satyam. The one consciousness is Satyam, and that one consciousness is the essential nature of both Jiva as well as Ishvara, and therefore the identity is in the higher order of reality. The identity is Satyam. And therefore, seeing this, one comes to the understanding that I am essentially that one all-pervading, imperishable consciousness that is Brahman. Aham Brahmasmi. So this is the understanding that one has to come to through Vedanta, Shravanam and Manam. And with this, the ignorance-based identification with the body and mind goes. So one knows that I am Brahman. But the habit-based identification with the body and mind can continue. And as we have seen, either in times of crisis or when faced with certain difficult situations, the habitual thinking takes over, the habitual mind takes over, the subconscious mind takes over. And therefore, the responses in these kinds of situations are determined by the habitual mind, subconscious mind. And therefore, in such situations, I can take myself to be the samsari, apurnaha, samsari, struggling jivatma out of sheer habit. not out of ignorance, but just out of habit. And certain responses may be dictated by that habit in such situations. But sooner or later, one realizes saying that, oh, I need not be doing this, because the knowledge comes in. So our aim is to not let the habitual mind take over, but instead we want that knowledge to come in first, even in these critical, even in these crisis situations, critical situations, when I'm faced with problems. I want the responses to be dictated by the knowledge ideally. And therefore, the knowledge has to enter the subconscious mind, has to take over the habitual mind by forming new habitual tendencies, by forming new habitual thinking patterns that are based on the knowledge, not based on the previous ignorance. And that is why nididhyasanam is required. One has to become habitually acquainted with this new reality. Because with the knowledge, I have discovered this new reality about myself, the world, and Ishvara. And therefore, I have to become habituated to the new reality. And that is why nididhyasanam, one constantly invokes the knowledge, repeatedly invokes the knowledge. That is what these verses are talking about. Therefore, as we saw, we take up the various words that Vedanta provides regarding my own nature and reflect upon it repeatedly in the nididhyasana. Therefore, as we saw, nirmalaha. Nirmalaha means that I don't have any of the impurities of the three bodies. All of the impurities belong to the sthula, sukshma, and karana sharira, not to me. Nirmalaha. Like the mortality, the impurity of mortality belongs to the sthula sharira. The impurities of raga, dvesha, kama, krodha, etc. belong to the sukshma sharira. And all of the karmas, the sanchita, prarabdha, agami karmas, etc., they are all stored in the karana sharira. So none of these impurities belong to me. I am nirmalaha as the one Brahmatma. Then I am achalaha, meaning that I don't move at all. There is no motion or activity in me because I am all pervading. Exactly like space. Space is all pervading. And therefore, when I move from one place to the other, there's space in my stomach or space in my lungs. When I move from one place to another, I don't leave that space behind. Nor do I have to pack that space and carry it with me. I just move. The body and mind move. But what happens is that I don't lose the space in my stomach or lungs. The space, the all-pervading space, gets enclosed in the stomach and lungs at the new location. Why? The space is there at the new location also. Similarly, I don't need to carry my consciousness when I go from one place to the other. When the body and mind go from one place to the other, I don't leave the consciousness behind, nor do I have to pack the consciousness along with me. I just move, body and mind move, and at the new location, the all-pervading consciousness that was already there gets reflected in this body and mind. It's a bit like carrying a mirror from one place to another in broad daylight. The sunlight, let's say I am in a particular location. The sunlight at that location gets reflected in the mirror. When I carry that mirror to a completely different location, 10, 15 kilometers away, I'm not carrying the sunlight along with me. The sunlight that is all pervading gets reflected in that mirror at the new location. Same thing with consciousness. Consciousness being all pervading, it is achalaha. It doesn't move from one place to another, and it need not move from one place to another. And such this consciousness, such a consciousness, that is Brahman, that I am. Not this body and mind. So when this body and mind are traveling, I use the language to say I am traveling. Really speaking, if I take the meaning of I, the lakshartha, which is this one Brahmatma, I don't travel anywhere at all. It's just the body and mind that travels. I don't travel at all. Achalaha, Nitya Shuddhaha, meaning that it is impossible for me to become impure. Because I belong to a higher order of reality. All the impurities belong to a lower order of reality. Therefore, it is impossible for me to become impure. I am Nitya Shuddhaha. It is not that I become pure after knowledge. With the knowledge, I discover that it is impossible for me to become impure. Nitya Shuddhaha, Nitya Muktaha. Similarly, after knowledge, I discover I don't get liberated. I just discover that it is impossible for me to become bound. I don't even need liberation. Similarly, Nityaikaha, meaning it is impossible for me to become many. Always one. In the beginning of Srishti, I alone am there as the one Brahmatma, Brahman. And after Pralayam also, I alone am there as Brahman. Now, in between, a lot of things appear. And when all of this multiplicity appears, even then, I have not really become many. I have only seemingly become many. Just as gold, in the beginning, there's a lump of gold. In the middle, I see a lot of ornaments. And in the end, they are all melted and it again becomes one lump of gold. Even when I see multiple ornaments, there is still one gold only. Multiplicity is not the reality. The being one, Nityaikam is the reality. So I am Nityaikam. And Akhandanandam Advayam. As we saw Khandananda, we all know Khandananda is the Ananda that I experience, the experiential Ananda that comes and goes. When the mind is in a conducive state, I experience happiness. That is experiential happiness that is time bound, comes and goes. But as we saw, the body and the mind or any object in the world inherently doesn't possess any happiness. The mechanics of the happiness that I experience is really that I am full, limitless, and complete. And in a conducive state of mind, my fullness, limitlessness, completeness, that is my nature, manifests as experiential happiness temporarily. So whether this experiential happiness is there in the mind or not there, I am always full, limitless, and complete. Exactly like whether my reflection is there in the mirror or not there. Mirror that reflects my face may come and go, come and go. But that doesn't affect my original face at all. Therefore, I remain full, limitless, and complete, irrespective of whether my fullness manifests as experiential happiness or not. Therefore, I am of the nature of Akhandananda. And Advayam, Akhandanandam, Advayam. There is really no second thing other than me. Everything that I see, all the drishyam is all anātmā. It's all products of Maya. And as we have seen, Maya itself is Mithya. It doesn't have any separate independent existence apart from Brahman. It is only unmanifest Nama-rupas. So all the products of Maya are also just Nama-rupas. The only difference is they are manifest Nama-rupas. There is no substance really anywhere here. There is no substantiality anywhere here. All that substantiality belongs to me. So I am Advayam. There is no second reality other than me. I am the only non-dual reality. And Satyam Jnanam Anantam Yat Param Brahmaham Eva Tat. So I am of the nature of Satyam. I am of the nature of existence. I, the existence, am not a part, product, or property of any object. I, the existence, am an independent principle that pervades every object and makes it exist. I, the existence, am not limited by the boundary of any object. And I, the existence, continue to exist even after all the objects disintegrate and become unmanifest. Even at Pralayam, I, the existence, continue to exist. And I, the existence that continued even during Pralayam, cannot be transacted with. It is not that I am not there, it is just that I cannot be transacted with because there is no medium, no Nabharupa medium for me to be transacted with. So this is the nature of me, myself, who is of the nature of existence, Satya. And I am of the nature of Jnanam. I am of the nature of consciousness. I, the consciousness, am not a part, product, or property of any body mind. I, the consciousness, am an independent principle that pervades all the body minds. I, the consciousness, am not limited by the boundaries of any body mind. And I, the consciousness, continue to exist even after all the body minds go. And I, the consciousness that continues to exist even after all the body minds go, cannot be transacted with, not because it is not there, not because I am not there, but because there is no body mind medium that manifests the consciousness. I am of the nature of Jnanam and Anantam. I, the Satyam Jnanam, I, the existence consciousness, am not limited by the boundaries of any object or any body mind, and therefore I am limitless. Anantam, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Yat. And this Brahman that is of the nature, that Brahman which is of the nature of Satyam Jnanam Anantam, that Brahman I am. Therefore he says, Brahmaham, Brahmaham eva tat. I am the Tatpada Lakshyartha, Lakshyartha of the Ishvara Pada, the intended meaning of the Ishvara Pada, which is the essential nature of Ishvara, that Brahman I am. So, evam nirantarabhyasta brahmaivasmiti vasana. So this has to be practiced. This repeated invocation of the knowledge has to be practiced in nididhyasanam. Then what happens? It becomes a vasana. Brahmaivasmi iti vasana. It enters the subconscious mind. Bharati avidya vikshepan, and then it starts to weaken the old habitual thinking patterns and strengthens the new habitual thinking patterns. Jiva bhava durbalikaranam happens. Brahma bhava prabalikaranam happens. And what is this Jiva Bhava? What is this habitual thinking pattern centered around the vision that I am the Jiva? As we saw, it is the triangular format, meaning there is a separate Jiva, a separate Jagat, and a separate Ishvara. I am this separate, limited Jivatma. And I see this separate real Jagat in front of me, which is my persecutor. I get persecuted by the Jagat. And in order to save myself from this persecution, I run to the Savior who is a separate Ishvara. This is the habitual thinking pattern of the triangular format. And therefore, I have to become free from this persecution, which is moksha. And therefore, moksha is something I have to attain. And hence, I become a seeker of moksha, I become a sadhaka. So this is the old habitual thinking pattern based upon ignorance. But what is the new? What is the new habitual thinking pattern that develops? That I am the Satyam Brahmatma and everything else other than me is Mithya. Atma Satyam Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyati. And I, as the Satyam Atma, Satyam Brahmatma, am the Adhishthanam of the Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara. All of these three are dependent upon this Satyam Brahma. And I am the Adhishthanam of all the three. And therefore, the triangular format Vasana begins to become weaker. I say, I am no longer this Jivatma, I am the Adhishthanam of the Jiva. That is this Brahma. So I don't have any of the limitations. Therefore, I am not this limited Jiva at all. There is no Apurnatvam in me. And this world, the separate Jagat in the triangular format, I am the Adhisthana of the Jagat also. I am Satyam, the Jagat is Mithya, and this Mithya Jagat loses its ability entirely to persecute me. It cannot even touch me in any manner. How can we even talk about any form of persecution? So the world has been defanged, so to say. Like there can be a poisonous snake. Poisonous snake with its fangs can really inject its poison, cause a lot of problems. But once it has been defanged, then it is still there, but it's just become something that is harmless, that is hanging around. The world becomes like that. It loses its ability to trouble me, to persecute me. And therefore, I don't need to be saved at all. And therefore, I don't need to run to the Savior, Ishvara, for everything. Why? Because I know that it is impossible for anything to persecute me. I don't need to be saved. And therefore, moksha is not something I have to achieve. Moksha is my very nature. Therefore, moksha ceases to be a goal, to be accomplished. And the other side of the coin is that as the Satyam Brahmatma, I cease to be a sadhaka. I am not a seeker who has to accomplish moksha, but I am siddha, meaning one who has already accomplished what needs to be accomplished. And then Atma Bodha continues and tells me how this nididhyasanam is to be practiced. And it says, Vivikta Desha Asina, sitting in a secluded place, quiet place, free of disturbances. One with Vairagyam Viragaha, Vijitendriyaha, one who has withdrawn the senses, contemplates upon this one Brahmatma, saying that I alone am, there is nothing else other than me. There is no second reality other than me. I am the only reality. And how do I come to the non-dual reality? Atma Bodha proceeds and tells us that I have to contemplate on the mithyatvam of the Jagat. Atmanyeva khilam drishyam pravilapya dhiya sudhihi. The wise one, the sudhihi, who has gone through Shravanam and Mananam, who has this Jnana, He sits in this contemplation and dissolves the entire world into Ātmā. Akhilam drishyam pravilapya. Atmani pravilapya. So what does it mean to dissolve the entire drishyam into Atma? Means seeing the mithyatvam of the jagat. Exactly like I see a pot and I dissolve the pot into clay by knowing that the clay alone is, the pot is just a nama rupa of clay. Similarly, I look at this drishyam jagat and dissolve the entire drishyam jagat into Atma, into me. And I say Atma, into me, the Satyam Brahma, by seeing the mithyatvam of the jagat, by seeing that everything here is only nama rupa, and I am the reality. So with this jnanam dhiya, I dissolve the entire drishya prapancha into the Atma. And I see that the Atma is entirely unaffected like space, nirmala kashavat. As we saw, the wave has got tremendous energy. When the wave comes like a tsunami, it can destroy buildings. It can topple ships. But there's one thing the wave cannot touch, which is the very water, the content of the wave, upadana karanam. The ornaments cannot touch the gold. The ornaments are mithya, gold is satyam. Similarly, the entire drishya prapancha being mithya, incapable of affecting me, the satyam Brahma, and therefore I am nirmala, like space. I cannot be polluted by anything at all. And how long should one contemplate in this manner? He says, sada. So one has to do long shravanam for a long period of time, longer mananam, and longest nididhyasanam. We'll go to the verse 40. Rupavarnadikam sarvam
रूपवर्णादिकं सर्वं
vihaya paramarthavit
विहाय परमार्थवित्
paripurnachidananda
परिपूर्णचिदानन्द
स्वरूपेणावतिष्ठते.
स्वरूपेणावतिष्ठते.
So, with the last verse, the topic of nididhyasanam has largely concluded. Although in some of the subsequent verses there are some references to it, but it has largely concluded. And from here we begin the topic of what is the phalam of this entire Vedānta-vicāra that we have seen so far. What is the phalam of the Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasanam? What is the phalam of Jnana Yoga? We say that is the Jnana phalam, the phalam of this Jnana. And what is it? We say it is Jnana-Nishtha or Jīvanmuktiḥ. Jnana-Nishtha means an abidance in this knowledge. Because knowledge has entered the subconscious mind. One begins to abide in this knowledge even in these difficult situations. So liberation when living, Jīvanmuktiḥ, one constantly knows in the back of one's mind, even if one is engaged in vyavahara, that I am Mithyā Upādhis, I am ever liberated, I am Purnaha, I have nothing to really accomplish in this world. And then one puts on the body-mind costume and then continues to act in this world. The entire life becomes like a sport. So from here to the end of this text, it is focusing on this phalam of Jnana Yoga, phalam of Shravanam, Mananam and Nididhyasana. So he says, Avatishthate. So in this verse, if we look at the last word on the second line, it says avatishthaté. Avatishthaté means he abides in Brahman. So what does it mean to abide in Brahman? Because if we take any product abides in its upadana karanam. For example, you take any ornament. The ornament is always abiding in gold. It is always resting in gold, whether we like it or not. Similarly, if you take any pot, the pot is always abiding in the clay, effortlessly abiding in the clay. There is no special effort to abide required to abide in the upadana karan. So then, what is special about this Jnāni? Because if we are saying that he abides in Brahman, really speaking, even the Ajnani is abiding in Brahman only, not somewhere else. So then what is special? Why say avatishthaté? Why say he abides in Brahman? So we say abiding in Brahman means not forgetting the jnanam, not forgetting the knowledge that I am Brahman. So jnana avismritihi eva niṣṭhā. Jnana avismritihi eva niṣṭhā. Jnanasya avismritihi eva niṣṭhā. Meaning the non-forgetfulness of this knowledge alone is called niṣṭhā, abiding in Brahman. So even in times of crisis, even in times of difficult situations, the knowledge is there, ready to be invoked. Before these habitual tendencies, etc., take over. This alone is niṣṭhā, Jnana-Nishtha. Then who abides in this jnana? Who abides? Avatishthaté. Kaha avatishthaté? Who abides? He says, Paramarthavit. What does Paramarthavit mean? Paramartham veti iti Paramarthavit. Meaning one who knows the Paramartha. What is this Paramartha? The Artha means substance. Artha means substance. And Parama means ultimate or final. Paramartha means the ultimate or final substance. Paramartha, the word meaning varies based on context. Paramartha can also mean the ultimate Purushartha, the Parama Purushartha, which is moksha. But in this case, it is really referring to the ultimate, the final substance. As we have seen, anything in the world always depends upon something else. We say that the shirt exists, but then when we find that the shirt depends upon the fabric, therefore we have to revise our statement, saying that the shirt is just a nama rupa of fabric that exists. But then when I look into the fabric depends upon yarn. Therefore, I have to say the shirt and the fabric are nama rupa of yarn that exists. But when I look into the yarn, I find it is made up of fibers. And therefore, the shirt, fabric, and yarn are just nama rupas of fibers. Fibers. When I look into the fibers, it is nothing but cotton. Therefore, I say the shirt, fabric, the yarn, the fibers are all nama rupa of cotton. And I can keep going. If I look into the cotton, I will find that it is some kind of hydrocarbon molecules. So then I have to say that the shirt, the fabric, the yarn, the fiber, the cotton are all nama rupas of these hydrocarbon molecules. But then when I look into the hydrocarbon molecules, I find there is something else. And then even in that thing, there is something else and something else. This is what the scientists are doing. They are continuing to say this, something else, something else. They still don't know what finally exists. They don't know the Paramartha. Vedanta tells me that the Paramartha is final substance is Brahman. Brahman is the Paramartha. So the Paramarthavit is none other than Brahmavit, one who knows Brahman. And how does he know Brahman? Through the Mahavakya. He knows that this Ātmā, that is here and now, which is none other than the real meaning of the word I. That is Brahman. Brahman is none other than this I. I am Brahman. So he knows that I, the Atma, am Brahman. That is the final ultimate substance. Vivarta Upadana Karanam. So just like in the dream, the substantiality of that entire dream world is borrowed from the waker, the observer of the dream world. Similarly, here, the substantiality of the entire world is borrowed from the observer, the ultimate observer, the drig. That is the real meaning of the word I, the Atma, which is Brahman. And therefore, this Mithyā world cannot touch me, who am the Paramartha. So this Paramarthavit, Atmavit, Brahmavit are all synonymous words. Paramarthavit avatisthate. The one who knows, who knows the Paramartha. How does he know the Paramartha? As I am Brahman, the ultimate substance. He is the knower of Brahman. So he abides, he said, he abides. Avatisthate. Abides in the knowledge. And having done what? He abides. Vihaya. So in the first line, we see Rupa Varnadikam Sarvam Vihaya. Vihaya means Tyaktva, Parityajya, means having given up. Having given up. So having given up what? Rupa Varnadikam Sarvam. So Rupa refers to all these attributes. We can take Rupa to literally mean the color also, the color of the skin, etc. Or the looks, how one looks, etc. That can also be a meaning of Rupa. And then we can extend it to say that all these attributes like I am male, I am female, I am young, I am old. So Rupa, all these attributes. And Varna, meaning one's own lineage, that I am Brahmana, I am Kshatriya. Or Varna can also refer to color. Varna, the word Varna also has got two meanings. So one's own complexion, whether one is fair or whether one is dark, etc. And Adipada is there. Rupa Varnadikam Sarvam. So Adi can be taken to be one's ashrama, that I am grihastha, I am brahmachari, and all the attributes of the mind, like raga, dvesha, etc. And all the attributes of the intellect, like kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, brahmatritvam. And all the roles and relationships that one puts on for the world. Like I am a father, I am a mother. So as we have seen in Nirvana Shatkam, this is what exactly Adi Shankaracharya Bhagavad-pada is telling us. Mano buddhya hankara chittani naham. And Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. So here also he says Paripurna Chidananda Swarupena Avatisthate. So Nirvana Shatkam is full of all these negations. We can even get that we can get that memorized. And then practice that in nididhyasa. So that is what he means by vihaya, means give up. Give up all of these. But what does it mean to give up? Because am I physically giving them up? So we say it is not physically giving these up. Because as long as one is alive, these all these attributes will be there. Just because one has gained jnana, one doesn't turn from being dark complexion to fair complexion, or one doesn't become young from being old. The attributes don't change at all. The attributes continue to be what they are. Before Jnanam, what they were, the same attributes are there after Jnanam also. So what does it mean to give up? So vihaya, as we saw, means tyaktva, parityajya. What does it mean to give up? Means give up the reality of. I give up the reality of these by negating them, by seeing that they are all mithya. Just like in case of the crystal with the red flower kept next to it. The crystal jnani knows that the crystal remains colorless. The crystal is untouched, even though the redness appears in the crystal. The redness doesn't go away. Vihaya doesn't mean giving up the redness literally, physically. Vihaya means understanding that the redness is really not there at all in the crystal. Redness is there, but it belongs to the flower, not to the crystal at all. So as we have seen, Vedanta is all about placing the attributes in the right places. I localize the attribute to the upadhi where it belongs. So similarly, I, the Satyam, that is the Paramartha, which is Brahman, being Satyam and all else being Mithya, there can be no real relationship between the Satyam and the Mithya. As we have seen, a man can never get married to the girl he sees in his dream. There can be no real relationship between two things that are in different orders of reality. There can be no marriage between Satyam and Mithya. They cannot get married. Therefore, these attributes, all of these attributes belong to some Mithyā Upādhi, not to me. So this is the Vihaya Rupa Varnadikam Sarvam. And then what does he abide as? Having given up the reality of all of these, having seen that all these attributes belong to the Mithya Anātmā Upādhis, what does he abide as? Say, Paripurna Chidananda Swarupenavatishtate. He abides as this Paripurna Chidananda Swarupaha. Because he sees that I am full, complete, limitless. All of these limitations belong to the Mithyā Upādhis. Therefore, where does it leave me? I am limitless, free of all these limitations. Free of the limitation of space, free of the limitation of time, free of the limitation of objects. I am all pervading, I am imperishable, and I am the Satyam that is there wherever any object is. No object can displace me, because I alone lend existence to every object. Every object is a product of Maya, therefore it is Mithya. Therefore, Chidananda, I am of the nature of Chit and Ananda. I am of the nature of this limitless consciousness. Paripurna Chidananda Rupena Avatishtade. We'll go to the next words. Jnātra Jnāna Jñeya Bhedaha
ज्ञातृ ज्ञान ज्ञेय भेदः
परेनात्मनि विद्यते
परे नात्मनि विद्यते
चिदानन्दैकरूपत्वात्
चिदानन्दैकरूपत्वात्
दीप्यते स्वयमेव तत्
दीप्यते स्वयमेव तत्.
In all the jnanam, in every jnanam, in every knowledge, there are these three factors that are involved. There's the jnata, the knower. There's the geyam, the known. And then there is the knowledge, which takes place in the form of this vritti in the mind, which is called jnanam. So this is called the tripuṭi. Tripuṭi means this triad of jnata, geyam, and jnanam is always there in every knowledge. But here, Bhagavad-pada is pointing out that it is not there. Na vidyate. Na vidyate. So, natmani can be split as na atmani. And then na can be connected to vidyate. Na vidyate. It is not there. So, what is not there? Jnatra, jnana, jnēya, bhedaha. This division of jnata, jnanam, and geyam is not there, Bhagavad-pada says. So where is it not? Where is it not present? Whenever you say something is not there, you should say, where is it not there? So he says, pare atmani na vidyate. In this para atma, or in this paramatma, which is Brahman, in this Ātmā, that is Brahman, this division of Jnatra, Jnana, Jñēya, Bhedaha is not there. Which means they are not there in me. As we said in Nididhyasanam, whenever Ātmā or Brahman comes in, I replace that with me. Post Nididhyasanam. So they are all these divisions are not there in me, the Ātmā. So if we look at it, let's take the Jnēyam. So in the Jnēyam, which is the known object, which is Drishyam, right? Atma cannot be any known object, any Drishyam. Atma can never be objectified. Therefore, Atma cannot be limited to be a Jnēyam, to be a Drishyam object. Atma cannot be objectified at all. Atma can never be the Drishyam Jnēyam. So let's take the Jnanam. The Jnanam is something which is the vritti. Vritti comes and goes. When I look at the pot vritti takes place in my mind. I say, this is a pot, this is a cot, this is a mat, whatever. So the vritti comes and goes. The vritti is savikaraha. It gets modified. And vrittihi is anityaha. Vrittihi comes and goes. But Atma is nirvikaraha. Means it has no modification. And Atma is nityaha. It doesn't come and go. Therefore, Atma cannot be this limited jnanam also. And this jnata also. Atma is not. Because the jnata is the one who is engaged in the process of knowing. The process of knowing always involves change. And therefore, this jnata is also a mixture of Atma and anātmā. A mixture of Atma and anātmā alone is called jnata. The mind by itself, without the Atma, it cannot know anything. Nor can the Atma by itself, without the mind, know anything. Exactly as we had seen in that example, where there's a dark room, there's a room with a window, and then outside it's all dark. Then in the room I switch on a light. So now the room is illuminated because of the light, but outside it is still dark. Now I keep a mirror near the window, and the mirror reflects this light in the room, and with that reflected light I can direct that patch of light to various objects outside, and they get illuminated. They become known. So here, the mirror by itself, if I switch off the light, the mirror by itself cannot illuminate anything because it is non-luminous. And if I take away the mirror, the light by itself cannot contact the objects outside without the mirror. So we say that for this illumination to take place, the mirror is required, the light is also required. When the light meets the mirror, then a mixture of the light and mirror is there. That is the one that illuminates. So similarly, the mind is there, Atma is there. The mixture of the mind and Atma alone is the Jnāta. Just like in the presence of the lamp and the mirror, there is reflected light in the mirror which is responsible for illuminating. Similarly, this reflected consciousness is there in the mind. And this reflected consciousness alone is responsible for illuminating the world outside. So this reflected consciousness is the Jnāta, not the original consciousness, not the Atma. And therefore, Atma, if we look at it, just as the lamp is not doing anything, the lamp is simply illuminating the mirror. So similarly, the Atma is not doing anything. The Atma is not actively involved in the knowledge transaction. The Atma just illuminates and lends existence to the Jnāta, the Jnayam and the Jnanam. They cannot exist without the Atma. Atma can be without all of them. Like in deep sleep. If I take deep sleep, in deep sleep, the Jnāta is resolved, the Jnayam is resolved, and the Jnanam is also resolved. All three of them are resolved. That's why no knowledge takes place in deep sleep. The Atma is there. Atma is very much there in deep sleep also. Therefore, Atma is the adhishthanam of all three. This entire triad is supported by the Atma. But Atma is not limited to any of these three. If we take this example where there's an animation movie, let us say, and the animation movie which is being portrayed on a screen, you see this character, a man comes, and then he looks this way, right, and he sees a mountain, and then as they show in these cartoon comics, right, there are all these bubbles near his head, right? There are these bubbles near his head. And in these bubbles, they show what this person is thinking. Right? In this, we see all this in this Amar Chitra Gatha books, etc. We can see that when a person thinks something, they put these bubbles and put the words in there. So now in this animation movie, they put these bubbles, and then he is thinking this is a mountain. Right? So all the three in this triad that are depicted in this movie, the knower is there. This person is a knower. And then the mountain is there. The mountain is a known. And then his thought, the Jnanam is there, which is depicted in the bubbles, that this is a mountain. He's thinking this is a mountain. So now, if we find the equivalent of the Atma, the equivalent of the Atma would be the screen that is supporting the knower, the knowledge, as well as the known. The screen is not the knower. Screen is not that knowledge. Screen is not the knower. But without the screen, none of these three can exist. The same holds true for the Atma also. Therefore, this division, all this division, Nyatrik, Jnana, Nyeya, Bhedaha, it is only there in Vyavaharika. It is not there in the Paramarthika reality, which is the Atma. The Atma is one Paramarthika reality. That is the Adhishthanam of the Jnatra, Jnana and Jnēya. So similarly, he says here, so there is one screen. In the example, it is because it is one screen that is supporting all this. The screen is one. Screen is one. That one Adhishtanam supports all the three. The screen being one, it is not any of these three. There is a difference in number. So similarly, Chidanandaika Rupatvat, I am this one Chidananda that is the support of all these three. I am this one limitless consciousness that is the Adhishtanam of Jnatra, Jnana, Jñēya. Therefore, these divisions are not there in me, the Chidananda, that is one. Ekarupatvat, Ekarupatvat. Then how is this without? Because we have this orientation that for everything, right? For everything, this Jnatra, Jnana, Jñēya, Bheda has to be there to know anything. So how is this? How is this Atma then known? How is the Atma known? So we say that this Jnanam, the vritti, is not required to illumine the Atma, to know the existence of the Atma. This vritti is not required. Then why do we entertain all these thoughts? Why do we say that this Aham Brahmasmi vritti is there? And why do we say that meditation is not this thoughtless state? In Vedantic meditation also, we have all these thoughts. We say the vritti is not required to illumine or objectify the Atma. But these vrittis are required, first of all, to negate the anātmā. Negate the anātmā, the vrittis are needed. And what about the Aham Brahmasmi vritti? What is its role? So as we have seen, the Aham Brahmasmi vritti is also not needed to objectify or illumine the Atma. Because the Atma is self-evident. Dīpyate swayameva tat, he says. Atma swayameva dīpyate. Atma is self-evident. I don't have to go through this process of knowing in order to know the existence of the Atma, to know that I don't need this tripuṭi. But the thoughts are needed to negate the anātmā, not to objectify the Atma. So even in this Aham Brahmasmi vritti, I am not objectifying the Atma, but I am knowing the nature of the Atma without objectification. I am not objectifying Brahman, but I am saying I am subjectifying Brahman there. I am saying that I am Brahman. I am not knowing Brahman as an object. So again, the Aham Brahmasmi vritti is not objectifying Brahman, but it is subjectifying Brahman by saying that Brahman is the lakshyartha of the Tatpada, is nothing but me, myself. That is the self-evident Atma. And even in this, negation is involved, because the Atma is self-evident. So I am negating all the limitations of this self-evident Atma that I had superimposed. I had superimposed these limitations of space, saying I am limited. I had superimposed the limitations of time, saying I am mortal. And I had superimposed the limitations of objects, saying that I am at par with any other object in this world. I am this puny creature in this immense world, limited by this world, limited by the objects of this world. All of these limitations are negated when I say Aham Brahmasmi. So with Aham Brahmasmi, that same self-evident Atma that is there in every experience, I understand that none of those limitations are there in this Atma, in this I. So Swamiji gives an example of a sculptor. Now, what does a sculptor do? He takes this rock, and the sculptor has got a certain vision of a murti, of a vision of Krishna, for example, of a deity. So let's take Krishna. So he has a vision of Krishna. And what is he doing? He's taking this rock, right? And he is not creating anything new. He is not creating the rock. The rock is already there. What is he doing? He's taking the chisel. In the beginning, he takes this big chisel and chips off large blocks of the rock. So then he gets some very, very rough shape. And then he takes a medium chisel, and then he continues to chisel away smaller pieces. And finally, the shape begins to emerge. But then he takes the finest chisel, and then he starts to chip away these fine things. So you even see the eyelashes or the nails and eyelashes and all of that. That entire figure emerges from that rock which are already there. All he did is chisel away the unwanted parts. He did not create anything new. He removed the unwanted parts of the rock which are already there. Similarly, here we are saying that the Jivatma is already there. The Atma is already self-evident. I don't have to bring some new Atma here. The Atma is already there. I have to use this chisel away at the Atma with the chisel of neti. Not this, not this, not this. I chisel away what is not. In some ways, the Vedantic student is like this sculptor. Through Shravanam and Mananam, he's chiseling away the superimpositions that have come about due to ignorance. And finally, once everything is chiseled away, that sthula sukshma karana sharirat vyatiriktaha panchakoshati san svasthatraya sakshi. All of this, as we saw, negation, not the sthula sharira, not the sukshma sharira, not the karana sharira. I am not Vishwa, not Tejasa, I am not Pragya. I am not none of the Panchakosha. I am none of the attributes of all of these bodies. All of this is chiseling away. Then once I have removed these superimpositions, as we saw, that all of these superimpositions arise because of ignorance and mixing up the Ātmā and anātmā. The ultimate chisel is the understanding that Ātmā is Satyam, Ātmā Satyam, Tadanyat Sarvam Mithyeti. This is the mother of all chisels because it removes every superimposition in one stroke. It is impossible for there to be any superimpositions. And this is done, and what is left behind is Brahman. Is the limitless Atma, because all these limitations have been chiseled away. What is left is the limitless Atma, none other than Brahman. We'll continue with the next verse. Evam atmaranau dhyana.
एवमात्मारणौ ध्यान
Mathane satatang krite.
मथने सततं कृते
Udita vagati jwala.
उदितावगतिज्वाला
Sarva jnanendhanam dahet.
सर्वज्ञानेन्धनं दहेत्.
So here, Bhagavad is giving an example of how this knowledge becomes steady knowledge. And he takes the example of fire in a Vedic homa. So how does this fire originate in a Vedic ritual in the homa? If we look at it, then there is a certain apparatus there. It is called arani. 2 aranis are there. And if you look at this arani, it is a wooden block. So there is a wooden block, a lower wooden block, in which there is some kind of a scoop or a hole is there in this wooden block. And then there is a second arani, which is a rod, a wooden rod, a dry wooden rod. So that is placed on this lower wooden block. And then with some ropes, one does this mathanam. So that's why he says, evam atmaranau dhyana mathane. He uses the word mathanam here, mathane. So with this, some kind of churning is done, like we churn buttermilk. Right? So there is a rod that is put in, and then the buttermilk is churned. So similarly, this upper arani is put on top of the lower arani. And when it is churned, there is friction. There is some friction between the rod and the base. And because of this, sparks arise. But the sparks themselves, right, have to be converted into steady fire. So one keeps some kind of cotton or some dry grass near that. And then when the sparks come because of the churning, that dry cotton catches fire. And then this fire is put into the homakunda. And then it becomes a steady fire that consumes all the offerings that are given into it. So Bhagavad-pada takes this example and compares it to Vedānta-vicāra. So here in the yaga, the bhutagnihi is generated, meaning that literal fire, which is one of the panchabhutas that is generated. The agnihi is generated. But in this churning of Vedānta-vicāra or Ātmā-vicāra, the Jnana agnihi is generated. The agnihi of Jnanam is generated. When we say Ātmā here, he says evam atmaranau. The word Atma is used there, but in this context, it means the steady mind of the student. That is compared to the lower arani. It is a steady mind of the student. The steadiness of the mind is important. And that means that it should be a qualified mind. It's a steady mind. That is the comparison. Because the lower arani does not move. It's only the upper arani that rotates. And the upper arani is not mentioned here in this particular shloka. But in other Upanishads, this example is given. For example, it's there in Kaivalya Upanishad, where it says, Atmanam aranim kritva pranamancha uttararanim. Pranamamcha uttararanim. So Atma, which is again the mind of the student, Atmanam aranim kritva, the mind of the student is compared to the lower arani, steady arani. And Pranava or the Omkara is compared to the Uttararani. There is Omkara Vichara, and therefore he talks about Omkara. But we can extend it in general to be any Vedanta Vakya, including the Mahavakya. That becomes like this Uttararani. So the Guru takes this Uttararani, the upper Arani of the Vedanta Vakya and the Mahavakya, and inserts it into the mind of the student, that is the lower arani. And then in Shravanam and Mananam, the Guru does the churning. With these ropes, he says, Tattvamasi, 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 Tattvamasi. So he is doing this churning, right? With the Mahavakya inserted into the mind of the student. And then from this arise this sparks of knowledge arise in the mind of the student. This is the jnanam that arises. And then the student continues this in nididhyasanam. The student continues to do the churning in the absence of the guru. And then the sparks of knowledge, they become the steady flame of knowledge. This is the comparison Bhagavad-pada is giving here. So he says, evam, in this manner, as taught in these previous verses, evam atmaranau dhyana-mathane krute. So this is Sati Saptami here, meaning that atmaranau dhyana mathane krite, meaning when this dhyana mathanam is done with this atmarano, meaning with a steady mind. In the steady mind, the student does this churning of the Mahavakya and Vedānta-vicāra, or even in Shravanam Mananam, this churning is done and it's continued in Nididhyasanam. So the entire process of Vedānta-vicāra, the entire process of Jnana Yoga is taken into account here. And how long is this churning done? Right? So there is the steady mind, that is the steady mind, that is the lower arani. And then the Vedanta Vakyas, which are the upper arani, which is like the rod. Churned during Shravanam Mananam and continued in Nididhyasanam. How long does this need to be done? Satatam, meaning one has to contemplate constantly. This has to be done constantly. So this transformation of the habitual thinking patterns doesn't take place overnight. And one doesn't really have to worry about the length of time also, because it is an enjoyable process. It is not like a chore. Contemplating that I am this Brahmatma is a very enjoyable process. Because I am contemplating on my glory as Brahmatma. Therefore, it doesn't have to be looked at as a chore. The process itself is enjoyable. But still, if there is a question of how long, then the answer is, how long does one have to churn the buttermilk? Until the butter emerges. How long does one have to churn the Uttararani and the lower Arani? Until one gets this steady flame. So similarly, until one continues this churning, until this flame of knowledge becomes steady, until Jnana-Nishtha, until one abides in this Jnanam, even in difficult, challenging situations, one is able to abide in this Jnanam. So until then, one has to continue the Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam. The entire process of Vedānta-vicāra has to continue. Then what happens? Bhagavad Pada says, Dahet. The second line, the last word, says Dahet, meaning it burns. What burns? Avagati Jwala. Avagati Jwala, meaning this Jwala means fire. Avagati means understanding, knowledge. Until this flame of knowledge. And what kind of this fire? This flame of knowledge has emerged. Udita avagati jwala, udita avagati jwala. Until this flame, steady flame of knowledge emerges. Udita. And what does it burn? Sarva jnanendhanam. Meaning that it burns this fuel of ajnanam. So during Shravanam and Mananam, this knowledge burns the ajnana. And during Nididhyasanam, it burns all of this, as we saw, avidya-vikshepa, all these habitual thinking patterns that are a product of ajnanam, until all of those are burnt. So in fact, in Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse again that compares this knowledge to fire. So he says, Jnānāgnihi sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute. Hey Arjuna, Jnānāgnihi sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute. Again, there Bhagavan Krishna is talking about Jnānāgnihi. So it's very similar here. Sarva jnanendhanam dahet. So we can say ignorance is burnt. And all of these products of ignorance, like the ahankara, mamakara, kartrutvam, bhoktrutvam, pramatritvam. We can offer all these as oblations into this jnana-agni. It burns everything. Why? Aham satyam, Atma satyam, tadanyat sarvam mithyedi. It is all burnt by recognizing that it is all mithya. Cannot touch me. This is the burning really speaking. I alone am. There is nothing else other than me. Whatever else appears to be there, it is only an appearance. It is mithya. All of this fear, anxiety, worry, all of these that arise by giving reality to the various things, they also get burnt in the process. Fear, anxiety, worry. In fact, the entire, all the karma that we have seen get burnt. Sanchita karma is destroyed. Agami karma is avoided. And prarabdha karma is falsified. This is also the burning of karma. This is what Bhagavan Sri Krishna is saying. Jnana-agnihi sarva karmani bhasmasat kurute. Hey Arjuna. So I am Nityā-Muktiḥ. One sees this. There is no samsara in me. The entire samsara is burnt down. One sees that I am Nityā-Muktiḥ, free of all samsara. Sarva jnanendhanam dahet. Everything, all the anātmā, and all the products of Maya are burnt down by seeing their Mithyātvam. So with this, we will stop here and continue in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.